What if I told you the most powerful way to give a woman pleasure has nothing to do with size, stamina, or some fancy trick, but something you've had all along your hands? The problem? No one ever taught you how to use them like this. Not school, not porn, not even your last relationship. But once you learn what real touch actually feels like, everything changes. And in the next few minutes, I'll show you how. It's strange, isn't it? We spend so much time obsessing over size, over performance, over what we think works. But rarely do we talk about what's already right here. Your hands, fingers don't get much credit. They're seen as a warm-up, a placeholder, something to get through before the real action. But here's what no one says out loud. For many women, fingers used with care, attention, and rhythm are not the warm-up. They are the main event. Why? Because fingers bend. They adjust. They sense tension, respond to breath, and follow the smallest cues a body gives off. Unlike anything else, they're soft where they need to be, firm when asked, and most importantly, they're connected to your awareness in real time. Think about it. You can't adjust pressure with your elbow. You can't pause with your hips. But your fingertips? They listen. And when a woman feels like your touch is not about getting somewhere, but about being with her fully, attentively, something changes. Her guard lowers. Her breath deepens. And her body begins to say, I trust this. That's when touch becomes more than mechanical. It becomes meaningful. So, in this video, we're not going to rush into techniques or magic tricks. We're going to slow down, relearn the basics, and understand why fingers, when used well, aren't just good. They're extraordinary. It's easy to assume that arousal is physical, that if the body says yes, the mind must already be there. But that's not how it works, especially not for women. Before pleasure can be intense, it needs to feel safe. Not safe like I locked the door, safe. Safe like I don't feel judged. I'm not being rushed. I can take my time and he'll stay with me. That kind of safety. Think of it like this. A woman's body is wired to protect her. From pain, from pressure, from anything that feels off. So, if her mind is tense or unsure, her body won't open. Even if she wants to enjoy it. Even if she loves the person she's with. That's why trust isn't optional. It's the foundation. And trust doesn't start with sex. It starts way before. In the way you ask. In the way you listen. In how you respond when she says, wait, or softer, or even just breathes a little differently. Here's something simple but powerful. Instead of guessing, say this out loud. Let me know what feels good. I want to learn you. That line? It melts anxiety. It tells her, you're not here to perform, you're here to connect. And connection changes everything. Blood flow increases. Pelvic floor muscles soften. Her focus shifts from, what is he doing? To, what am I feeling? That's where real pleasure begins. So if you want your hands to matter, they have to arrive with presence, not pressure. With patience, not expectation. With the quiet kind of confidence that says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to understand you. And when she feels that, her body starts to say yes, without needing words. Let's talk about teasing. Not the fake kind. Not the kind that's all hype and no follow-through. But the kind that builds real anticipation, not just in the mind, but in the blood, the nerves, and the body's deepest layers of readiness. Here's something most people don't realize. Arousal isn't a switch. It's a wave, and that wave begins long before anything gets touched. When you slowly kiss her neck, trace your fingers down her sides, or just hold her hips without moving, you're not wasting time. You're creating circulation. Literally. As her heart rate rises, blood flow increases to her vulva, her clitoris, her vaginal entrance. The tissue swells. The nerves awaken. The skin becomes more sensitive. And everything feels more alive. Teasing doesn't just turn her on. It actually primes her body to feel more. And beyond biology, there's something else happening. When you move slowly, when you pause, you send a message. This moment matters. I'm not just touching you, I'm reading you. And that's rare. Because too often, people rush. They jump to the goal. They skip the build-up, and with it, they lose 80% of the pleasure. A woman's body wants time. Not because she's slow, but because her system is designed to respond in layers. So next time, don't think of teasing as something to get through. Think of it as the invitation. The part where her mind gets quiet, her body says yes in whispers, and her breath starts to match yours without either of you planning it. That's not delay. That's design. And it's where the best things begin. And in just a minute, I'll show you the one shift that turns foreplay into the most powerful part of her pleasure. No toys, no tricks, just presence. But first, let's challenge a word we've all misunderstood. If this already feels different than what you've heard before, leave a quick comment. I'd love to know. Let's be honest. The word foreplay kinda undersells it, doesn't it? It sounds like the thing you have to do before you get to the thing you really want. Like the salad before the steak, the trailer before the movie. But what if we've been thinking about it all wrong? Because for many women, what we call foreplay touch, teasing, kissing, grinding, exploring, is the most satisfying, most intimate, most explosive part of the experience. Not the lead-up, the centerpiece. Why? Because it's not about just getting somewhere. It's about being inside the moment together, without a timeline, without a finish line, without treating her body like a checklist. And that changes everything. When you stop seeing foreplay as a box to tick, you start to notice things. How she tilts her head when your lips trace her collarbone. How her fingers tighten ever so slightly when you graze the back of her knee. How her breath shifts not at the obvious spots, but in those quiet, in-between touches. That's not before anything. That is the thing. And here's the secret. When you treat each of those moments like they matter, not as a lead-in, but as the main act, what comes after, if it comes at all, feels deeper, fuller, more connected. Some of the best experiences she'll ever have might not involve penetration at all. And if it does, it'll feel less like a transition, and more like a continuation of something already beautiful. So maybe it's time we drop the word foreplay altogether, and just call it what it is. Touch, intention, presence. The good stuff. The real stuff? The stuff that doesn't need to lead anywhere, because it's already enough. Let's talk about rhythm. Not the flashy kind with music in the background, not the kind that tries to impress, the kind that stays quietly, patiently, until the body begins to trust it. Here's a truth most men never hear. What unlocks climax for many women isn't pressure. It isn't speed. It's consistency. The brain, the nerves, the muscles, they respond to patterns. To repeated, reliable signals. To a kind of sensory rhythm that says, "You're safe here. You can let go now." When your fingers move in a loop, when your thumb circles the same way again and again, when your touch finds a groove and doesn't break it, that's when her body starts to ride the wave. Not because you're doing something magical, but because you're not changing it at the last second. So many climaxes fade, not because of what we do wrong, but because we interrupt what was going right. Think about how it feels when someone massages a knot in your back. Just as the pressure feels perfect, they shift, and your body tenses all over again. That's what it's like when someone finds the right rhythm on her body, then switches up, thinking they need to do more. Here's the truth. You don't need more. You need to stay right there, just like that. Because pleasure isn't about impressing. It's about attuning, about learning how her breath changes, how her hips shift, how the smallest sound means you're in sync. So next time, when you find a rhythm that's working, lock into it. Let it build. Let her body take the lead, and your hands follow. The climax doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from being present enough to stay exactly where you are. Most men think the magic happens after they go inside. But the truth? That moment right before matters even more. Here's how to make it count. There's a moment, after all the teasing, the rhythm, the presence, when she might say, "I want you inside." It's a vulnerable moment, not just physically, but emotionally, because going inside means something different for her body than it might for yours. So before anything enters, pause, not to hesitate, but to honor the invitation. And remember this, wetness doesn't always mean readiness. Arousal and openness are not the same. Even when she's turned on, her pelvic floor muscles might still be holding tension, especially if she's had pain before, or stress, or just a long day in her body. So you don't push. You glide. One well-lubricated finger, slowly, not aiming deep, just gently at the entrance, then a pause, letting her body welcome you, not brace for you. And once you're in, you don't thrust. You explore. Imagine your fingertip as a sensor, not a tool. You're not doing something. You're feeling into something, and that's when you might find it, just an inch or two in, along the front wall, a slightly spongy or ridged texture. That's the G zone. Not a button, not a myth, a real zone with real nerve endings that responds best not to pressure, but to presence. Try a gentle come here motion, curling toward the belly. Not deep, not fast, just consistent, tiny arcs, with space in between. And here's the key. If she tenses, stop. Stay connected. Breathe together. Maybe even return to external touch, because being invited back in always matters more than never leaving. This isn't about performance. It's about partnership. When you explore with awareness, her body stops guarding, her pleasure deepens, and suddenly your hands become something more. Not just instruments, but interpreters. Your hands become something more than, not just instruments, but interpreters. Ever wonder why she suddenly goes quiet? Why the energy shifts, even when you think you're doing everything right? It's not about your moves, it's about something far deeper. And that's where communication begins. And here's where most men lose connection, right when things get most intense. But it's not too late. You've probably heard it before. Communication is key. But in the middle of something intimate, when everything feels electric, words can feel awkward, too clinical, too exposed. So we stay silent. We guess. We hope we're doing it right. And sometimes, we're not. But what if words didn't break the moment? What if they made it better? Because here's the truth. Asking isn't a sign you don't know what you're doing. It's proof that you care to know her, not just sex. And when done right, words become part of the rhythm. They guide. They reassure. They connect. It doesn't have to be formal. It can be soft, short, intimate. Like that? Softer or firmer? Tell me if you want more. Even just a whispered, "Here?" These aren't interruptions. They're invitations. They let her feel safe enough to speak up. They give her permission to want more. Or less. Without guilt. And if she's not verbal, that's okay too. Watch her breath. Her hips. Her eyes. But still say something. Because even silence, when paired with kindness, is better than assumptions. And don't underestimate what it feels like. When someone looks you in the eyes and says with complete calm, "I want to learn you," that sentence, it dissolves pressure. It turns the moment from "Are you impressed?" to "Are you okay?" And when she hears that, really hears it, she doesn't have to perform. She can just feel. And that opens the door to deeper pleasure than any technique ever could. Climax isn't the end. It's a doorway. And what happens next? In the quiet, in the breath, in the space between two heartbeats, often matters more than anything you just did. Because the body, right after pleasure, is open, vulnerable, sometimes buzzing, sometimes tender, always real. And in that afterglow, she's not asking for fireworks. She's asking for presence. A hand resting on her belly, fingers stroking her hair. A simple, steady breath beside her. These small gestures say, "I'm still here. I'm not disappearing now that it's over." And that makes her feel seen, not just touched. You don't need a perfect line. You don't need to analyze what just happened. But maybe after a few quiet minutes, you gently ask, "What did you like most?" That one question, it's gold. It tells her you care. It tells her this wasn't about ego. And it gives her a chance to remember the good and file it in her body as safe, warm, worthy. And you learn, you grow. You get better not because of technique, but because of attention. So don't rush the after. Stay, hold, breathe, because sometimes the most intimate moment doesn't come during the peak, but in the way you stay after the wave has passed. So maybe, by now, you're seeing things a little differently. That pleasure isn't about pressure. That skill isn't about speed. And that real intimacy, the kind that lingers, that changes how someone sees themselves, starts with awareness, not ambition. It starts with slowing down, with tuning in, with realizing your hands have always had more power than you thought. Not because of what they do, but because of how they listen. And if this opened something for you, a new understanding, a memory, a quiet, "Wow, I wish I learned this sooner," don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment. What part hit you the most? What would you want more of? Share this with someone who deserves better than silence and guessing. A partner, a friend, a younger version of you. And if this kind of grounded, respectful, real talk is what you've been looking for, subscribe. There's more coming. And every video is here to help you not just perform better, but connect deeper. Because pleasure isn't a technique. It's a language. And you're already learning how to speak it. With presence, with patience, and with care.